On the card, we're looking down a bout of the welterweight division, and it's Geoff Neal versus Ian Garrry. In the red corner, you got 15-5. Blue corner, 13 and undefeated. So out of Ireland and United States, the taller fighter is going to be Ian Garrry at 6'3", to Geoff Neal's 5'11". The advantages, like the clear ones, I would say it's just going to be in that height, really. But reach and leg kicking range, it's going to be pretty much on par. Although we know it's going to be huge. It is a bit surprising. I'm not sure if I kind of believe that. But yeah, in terms of the kicks, we know who's going to be utilizing it more. It's going to be in Garry.
100%.
The way he was chewing up Neal in that Neal Magny.
Yeah, it was Neal and Magny. But, can Geoff Neal overcome that? Yeah. Is kind of the question we're going to be asking ourselves heading into this weekend.
Yeah. I'd say, if you look at their last fights, while we're on that topic of, Neal did get beat down pretty hard in his last fight against Shavkat.
He did.
He's a Ranger striker as well. He was a little bit boxing. Too much for him with those knees to the body.
Yeah.
It made it not comfortable for him to be in those clinch scenarios in the pocket either. So what tools does Neal have that will actually give Garry problems tonight? Would
be his power, I would say. Yeah.
How many wins by.
And of course, I think he's going to want to close distance, similar way to what we were talking about earlier with Hernandez. I think he's got to make it an ugly fight and really pressure Ian Garry. Because we saw in this Song Kanon fight, Song Kanon dropped Ian Garry, and that was in close quarters when Garry was kind of getting a little bit too carried away in those exchanges. So if Geoff Neal is able to draw that out of Garry again, then maybe he can land big.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. And let's be honest though, because if we are talking about previous fights as well, school was in session for both of these guys in their last bouts. So Geoff Neal, for example, he was getting schooled by Shavkat, but Garry was undoubtedly the headmaster dishing out the hard lessons for Magny when they fought together, when they came together. So I guess it was Magny's legs which were most compromised when they fought, wasn't it? He chewed that up, and it is practically TKO by just having mercy on his legs.
Nearly.
What do you think Neal's chance? Do you know what it is? Both have Neal in their name.
Yeah,
it's hard. What do you think Geoff Neal's chances are? The southpaw fighter, bearing in mind, against the legs and the head kicks of Garry. That is going to be the worrying part. Southpaw being the key element here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because obviously everything's opened up when it's southpaw versus orthodox. But maybe we might see Ian Garry use a little bit more start switching in this one, perhaps. But back onto your question, I think for Geoff, I think Geoff Neal needs to just kind of close the distance, back Garry up, go to work on the body first before landing up top. And just really put his punches together, which is something that Neal Magny wasn't capable of doing against Garry, because Garry was so good at utilizing his distance, using his kicks. And in the clinch, there was some good exchanges. Yeah. It was in tight, but there wasn't anything massive that happened in those exchanges, really. It was more or less Garry just using his size and strength, really, to kind of press against Garry. So, that's one thing that Geoff Neal needs to look out for.
Because we brought up against the other fights, it'd probably be a miss if we didn't. Not that there's going to be a lot of grappling in this one, but do you think that the hands or the striking of Garry could bring out the wrestler in Neal? I mean... Maybe.
Let's put it this way. Ian Garry's been doing some jiu-jitsu work down at Shoot the Box in Brazil with the likes of Charles Oliveira. So
we saw Burns in his corner last fight.
Yeah, so maybe that is something that he works a lot on in training. Obviously, his fights you don't see that necessarily in his fights, because he has been putting on a bit of a striking masterclass. So maybe he can fall back on that area.
I signed up.
Should Neal be too much for him in terms of pressure?
His striking masterclass, I signed up to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. It's a 3-month semester. Can't wait to get started. If only. But okay, no, fair enough. And I would only say maybe he brings a grappling because, I don't think, Geoff Neal will bring the grappling, because if he had that capability, we would have seen it against Shavkat. I would have loved to have fallen into when he got out there at the end. I was thinking he's against the fence. He's getting rained down on. Shoot into the hips because you'll survive a bit longer. But he just
I don't think that's Geoff Neal's nature, to be honest.
It's not.
He's more of a striker.
If we were going to see
and plus grappling is tiring anyways.
So
he is a purple belt now, which I think he obtained in 2021 actually. So he clearly does some jiu-jitsu work in training, but his hands
when you get
always
punched in the head, it's not like a natural kind of response too. No. Let's get those gauges up and you can check out some.
Yeah, absolutely. All
right, so striking, I'm happy to go Machado Garry with that. I'm happy to. I know that Geoff actually. That will leave you with what does Geoff Neal have?
Depends on range for me. It depends on whether or not Garry's able to utilize it.
I would say striking because we'll have to really consider the amount of threats that come from Garry opposed to what comes from Neal. Neal's predominantly hands. Garry's got strike with the legs, strike with the hands, elbows. He can bring a few more tools to the fight.
He's got sharp jab as well as Ian Garry. Yeah, okay.
And then power, I can comfortably go with Neal on. But what would we say about the grappling? He did attempt it with Shavkat in like round 1. He opted not to go back there, maybe obviously, but
Garry, I don't think we've really seen much of it from Ian Garry either.
I haven't seen any at all. I think I will put Geoff Neal in reference to this fight because if anyone's going to put it out desperately, I think that
Geoff Neal's a purple belt. Ian Garry's apparently a black belt in judo, which I never knew. But this doesn't really state what belt he's got in terms of jiu-jitsu. So for that reason, I think if you go straight jiu-jitsu alone, then I'd probably go Geoff Neal.
Geoff Neal to grappling. All right, then speed. I'm happy to go Garry with speed. I think he's fast.
He is quick.
I think he's rapid. But also it's almost an illusion because the limbs that he's got and the distance at which those strikes travel, it does seem like a little bit more.
Puts it down to the cardio as the decider.
I would go Ian Garry.
Difficult.
I've seen, I would say Ian Garry. Was it? No, I'm thinking of
difficult because, of course, Geoff Neal's been in some wars.
He has, but also
and gone the distance in those wars.
Yeah. Here's one that I would like to make as well.
Wasn't much of a war.
Often in the UFC, you'll notice the most muscly or the most ripped fighter to be the one who gasses the most. That particular body physique does require a lot of energy to fuel, basically. So I would probably think, he's a muscular guy. He's probably going to be the one to gas faster as well. But historically, I've seen Garry look fresh for longer as well. I think against Shavkat, I mean, he was beat down. He got attacked in the body, so it did look like he was fatiguing.
Yeah, and that fight was quite high paced.
Yeah,
throughout. Whereas we're not really seeing Ian Garry in those type of firefights.
This is true.
Even the Son Canon one. I mean, I don't think so. Was that Jordan Williams a bit of a? I mean,
I reckon it'll be Garry. I think it'll be. What do you guys think in the chats? I mean, do you think otherwise? I do think it'll be Garry. I reckon he's going to have the higher striking output, but ultimately, I think he's going to have the cardio as well for the 3. And on the fight, I would pick Garry too. I feel like the fight for the Shavkat fight was a very important one for us to learn an important aspect from Geoff Neal. He surprised me historically against Luque. In hindsight,
that Luque fight was probably his best display I've seen.
Beautiful in that one. In hindsight, it did look great. And now, of course, against Shavkat, it really sort of exposed some issues, and I don't think they've been patched up coming into this fight against Ian Garry. So for me, I think I like Garry on it.
All right, fair enough. Okay.
Yep.
Let us know in the comment section or the chats, of course.